Coming up on today's episode of the Real Lives podcast.
And I immediately thought, okay, I ruptured something in my knee. Something popped in my knee and there started a pus coming out. And we immediately went actually to the emergency care. And there they kept me for 3 nights. But I never saw anyone talk about like odd position strength, something I talk a lot about on my channel, and range strength. I never see anyone talk about that. You should imagine the worst conditions ever in your home country. If you're from a place where you can surf, those are the waves that we surf in Belgium and are super stoked about. The manager, the boss of O'Neill in Belgium, and he saw me surfing. And he actually saw something in me and he was like, all right, I want to sponsor that kid.
On today's episode, I have on professional surf coach Keith Marcantuoni. Keith is an incredibly knowledgeable coach, especially in the realm of surfing, having been a high-level surfer himself from Belgium. And throughout his years, he's obviously transitioned into the coaching realm, and he has a very different philosophy from what most S&C coaches would have. He places a lot of emphasis and focus on bodyweight work with a lot of mobility and flexibility in that. And I think it's really interesting conversation that we have when we talk about all the things to do with about how to become a better surfer, how different skills and strength training sessions can transfer over into surfing itself. We also talk about how he built his coaching philosophy and also his recent knee injury, which he got while surfing in Bali, which is a crazy story. And during the episode, he also gives some advice for new and up-and-coming coaches and also those who want to specifically build a online client base through social media. So this isn't just an episode about surfing, it's an episode for all coaches looking to get into the coaching industry and to help you build your coaching philosophy in your niche as well. So you can find all of Keith's links down in the description below if you want to be coached by him, if you want to go to one of his surf camps or something like that. And also please remember to like, subscribe and share the podcast, because it's something like only 4% of those who are subscribed watch the podcast. So the rest of you are just turning up and sodding off. So please hit that button somewhere. Thanks. Greatly appreciated. So without further ado, here's Keith Marcantuoni. Enjoy. Okay, so Keith, thanks for coming on, and sorry about all the little problems we've just had. But I'm excited to get this one done because I came across your training philosophies and things like that, and obviously your approach to how you adapt your training to tailor it to surfing. And I was really interested to talk to you about how you've sort of come to these different philosophies and things like that, and also your journey yourself with how your training's changed over the years. So if you want to just tell everyone who you are and what you do.
Yes, thank you so much, Ethan, for the invite for me to come on the podcast. Appreciate that. Now, so my name is Keith Marcantuoni. I'm a surfer from Belgium, and I'm also a personal trainer. I started surfing around 18 years ago, and I was sponsored by O'Neill for a long time, the team here in Belgium, and then later on also O'Neill Europe. And back in that time when I was a Grom, a small surfer, there was not that much of training going on. We had some coaches who tried to implement like physical training into our surfing, but most of it was just technical surf coaching, like we still know it today. Then later on, I started studying to become a sports teacher and eventually a personal trainer. In the last year of my bachelor degree, we got like a choice to do a specialization in personal training, and that was like really my biggest interest. So I went for that, and then eventually started working as a personal trainer back here in Belgium. And actually soon I realized, it was actually already before I started working as a personal trainer, but I realized how much the impact was of physical training on my surfing. In the way that due to the training that I did on land, I could spend much more time in the water, throw bigger, make bigger maneuvers, get into like way more radical positions whilst I'm surfing. And I was seeing this direct relation in between the training and the surfing. So I went deeper into studying all that. And now I started Level Up, and that's actually how it all started.
Nice. So you said there you started surfing 18 years ago. So you were obviously a kid when you started, and like I'm not familiar with obviously a surfing scene in Belgium. So how often were you able to get surfing and stuff like that? Like were you based by the coast, or was it like regular trips you were taking and things like that?
Yeah, so I live near the coast, 5 minutes walking, I'm at the beach, but the Belgian coast is only 62 kilometers long, so we don't have that much places to surf. And also, we have the UK who's right in front of us, so there's not much swell coming through. So we surf in Belgium every time when it's storming, and I mean like really bad weather, so that we have wind swell. So it's really difficult to surf in Belgium because the waves are really unpredictable. Oftentimes, the period in which you can surf is only a couple of hours, so you have to be right at the spot when it's on. Um, just for the people who are listening, you should imagine the worst conditions ever in your home country. If you're from a place where you can surf, those are the waves that we surf in Belgium and are super stoked about. Also, every single time when the waves were on, me as a kid and with my friends, we were just in the water, just part of my philosophy is also that when there is a wave, even if it's just small foam running to the beach, you can surf it. If it's a wave, you can surf it. And Belgian surfers actually manage to surf some really what a lot of people would call bad conditions, and we can have a lot of fun in them and do maneuvers. So just every single time when there was a wave, and still until today, I go surf. And we also, of course, try to do trips to southwest of France. It's like 10 hours driving for us, but even closer, you have some good places to surf. Also in Holland, in the Netherlands, you have a little bit more exposure. UK is less in front of the Netherlands, so we go there. And also, I was so lucky to be sponsored by O'Neill that I had the chance to do a lot of trips. Went to different places around the world, outside of Europe as well. And in the summer also, I was like 2 months when it was like school vacation. I was 2 months in France to train. Yeah.
Yeah. So at what age was it that you became sort of sponsored by O'Neill, and how did you get the exposure to get to that point where they contacted you and obviously brought you on board?
Yeah. You have to know that being sponsored as a surfer in Belgium, the level of surfing is much lower than in countries like, for instance, in France or in like wave-rich countries, I would call them, where you can surf like every day. So just for the people who are listening, my level for a Belgian surfer was like good. But if you would compare me to a sponsored team rider from France, for instance, southwest of France, I would be not that good compared to those people. But how did it go? I was around 10 or 11 years old. Was actually pretty early on, and it was one guy, Chris Verhoeven, from Belgium, who was like the manager, the boss of O'Neill in Belgium, and he saw me surfing, and he actually saw something in me, and he was like, all right, I want to sponsor that kid, give him some wetsuits, some clothes, some gear, and then let's see what happens. And then eventually I got better and better. I joined the team. We did a surf trip to Morocco. It was tried to surf some bigger waves for the first time, and then that's how it went. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously going from transitioning from like your typical surf in Belgium and maybe the Netherlands and the odd trip to the southwest of France, how was it then going to those bigger waves and obviously transitioning into that sort of surf rather than like, as you were saying, what everyone would call bad conditions? How was it going from them to then like these, typically on a regular basis you're getting these massive waves and stuff?
Yeah. So also for the people who are listening, if as a Belgian surfer we say a bigger wave, that is just an average day in Australia, like two or three meter waves. That never happens in Belgium unless when it's like over 100 kilometers an hour wind and like blowing wind for days, then maybe we have like massive wind swell waves. But like the real, like the ground swell, the really powerful waves, like tubing waves, we don't have that here. That's already for a lot of Belgian surfers that I know, it's like very intimidating. So yeah, definitely going from Belgian waves to the more bigger waves, and from our perspective, is all about like building up. You just go in and just gradually you build up your experience in those waves. It's not that you can go from really small waves all of a sudden into like much bigger waves. It's you go in the water. First sessions, it's just waiting, just trying to manage to get back in the lineup, wait your turn. Maybe when I was a small kid, I remember there were a lot of sessions that I didn't catch any waves. That's also what I try to teach to more adults who are learning to surf now, that it's okay that if you have, as a beginner or an intermediate surfer, that some sessions you don't catch any waves. That's okay. Just being there in the water, paddling, learning how to behave in a crowded lineup, that's all part of surfing. It's not only standing up on your surfboard and riding the wave. So for me, that was a big part of the learning process. Obviously, I was a really small kid in the team with O'Neill. I remember that I was like the really small kid, and all the other guys were already teenagers or adults. So yeah, if I go surf with those guys, it is normal that I'm not catching as many waves as them, or even some sessions catching no waves at all. So it's just gradually exposing yourself, trying to find your how you say that, your limits, but don't go too far beyond it or it will be dangerous. So just try to push the boundaries, but be very mindful and very thoughtful about how you push those boundaries, so that it doesn't become a dangerous situation for yourself and also not for the other surfers in the lineup. And just that's how you build up, build up, and you can go as far as you want with that. I know some surfers here in Belgium, a good friend of mine who surfs big waves, like we can call it big waves, like really 10 meters plus waves. And he's a guy from Belgium. How did he do that? Well, just the same thing. He's surfing for over 20 years, and he's just gradually pushing himself to those bigger waves. So yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because like you said there, like obviously it's okay to have sessions where you don't catch anything, and trust me, like I moved out to Melbourne, Australia about it was just over 18 months ago. And while I was there, I obviously took up surfing. Like being in Melbourne, you're right near the Great Ocean Road, so you can get to Torquay within an hour. So it's really easy to get there. But shit, I had so many sessions where I just got battered, and there was one in particular where it was on my birthday last year. I took a trip up to the Gold Coast, and the surf there, in comparison to what you get in Melbourne, is just like nothing you experience. It's crazy, and I got it battered. I think I caught one wave in about 3 hours, and I just got absolutely battered. But for that one wave, it was so worth it. Everything was worth it because it felt so good. You know, because that's the thing. Like when you're getting into surfing, you don't realize actually how taxing it is on the body in terms of trying to keep your position in the water. You know, trying not to shift with the swell and stuff, and then also the amount of times that you paddle for a wave and you just miss it and stuff like that, and then catching that first one is like it's the best feeling in the world.
Yeah, yeah, I can completely relate to that.
Mm. Yeah. So have you surfed Australia at all, or are you spent most of your time in Europe?
Yeah, I've been in Australia this year. I did a long travel. I traveled for 9 months together with my girlfriend in Asia. And it was actually not the plan to go to Australia. But then we got to know two guys. One who's living in near Margaret River, West Coast, and then one guy who's living on the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
And both of those guys actually invited us to come to their home.
Oh,
And
nice.
yeah, my girlfriend were straight away like, yeah, let's do it. Let's visit our friends there. We first went to West Australia, in Gracetown. So yeah, we surfed all the spots there, me and my friend, and then we also went to the Gold Coast. And I have to say that the West Australia is like, I have a good friend of mine who've been there a few times, and he always explained to me like it's raw. It's like really, yeah, raw. That's the word he said. And I can now, when I was there, I was there for like a little bit more than 1 week, and yeah, it's so raw. It's so powerful. The waves as well are like super strong, super powerful, and actually, yeah, I really enjoyed it there. And then the Gold Coast was also beautiful, more tropical, and the waves were, yeah, a little bit softer there, I would say.
Mm.
Yeah, so I've been in Australia for 2 or 3 weeks. That's it, but I'm definitely going back.
Yeah, because they host the World Surf League, don't they, in Janjuk Beach, which is on the Great Ocean Road, and because of the Antarctic winds that you get coming up towards like the south of Australia, if you don't like for obviously a beginner, sometimes you just don't time it that well in terms of like you get a really windy day, and oh my god, it's like the hardest conditions you can be in, and you're just getting taken. You start in one position, within 10 minutes you're about half a mile down the coast kind of thing, because you just get wiped out. And it's so fun. I think the surf culture as well is so fun, because obviously people have been doing it for years and years, and everyone there actually is really helpful in terms of like, even in the water they'll be like, maybe try this or do this. Like the amount of times I have conversations with people is crazy, and the community is something that, I think because obviously you're in the water, it's kind of isolating in a way, because obviously if you catch a wave you're away from people straight away, but people are very helpful, very like open with you, and just be like, maybe try this or try this, and it's like a really good community to be in, I think.
Yeah, yeah, that's so cool to hear that people help each other, and yeah, that's what it's all about. I think, yeah, everyone has to start somewhere, and if you're a more experienced surfer and you see someone struggling or having coming up to you and having some questions, then all you can do is help that person, because you as a more experienced surfer also started there. So yeah, that's cool to hear.
So when you were sponsored, I'm guessing the goal was to push yourself to become like a pro athlete, and sort of compete in as many competitions as possible. But obviously then you've transitioned into surf coaching and the performance aspect of it. So at what point was it that you decided that that was going to be the transition that you would make, in order to sort of further your career as it is now?
Yeah, well, actually, the realization, and that is so for a lot of Belgian surfers, the realization that you can't become. I don't say it's impossible, but for now, no one ever has achieved it. The chance of becoming a professional surfer in Belgium on like the European or the world stage, without leaving the country is now unseen. And for me, the realization came at, I don't know, maybe I was 16 or something, or even earlier, at 14 years old. The thing was that I had to move to another country. We looked at France, also actually at Australia. We had some friends there, to move there and to live there and study there, and then try to yeah, level up and become like maybe a professional surfer. But then we decided not to do that, and then I just continued being a sponsored surfer here in Belgium and the Benelux. Obviously, also just did competition here within the Benelux, and then there was a time between, yeah, I think maybe 16 and 18 or 19, when I started going to the university, that I was just enjoying surfing, but didn't know. I already accepted the fact that I would never become a professional surfer. But between that, it was like just that time of a few years, and then when I actually started studying and started experiencing the effects of physical training on my surfing, that's when I yeah, started creating this idea of, yeah, maybe I should also start doing coaching trips, but then implement the physical training into it, because no one else is doing it. And yeah, it actually grew over the years. It grew. I also already, since I'm like 15 or 16, I started working on these surf camps as an instructor, and then I started working at a surf club, and then eventually, when I got a bit older, I made a step to start with Level Up, and then do the whole thing, the physical training, with the online coaching and the coaching trips, because I also did a lot of coaching trips, participated in a lot of coaching trips myself. When we were with O'Neill, there was a lot of like coaching weeks that were organized, where they would hire some surf coaches, and then with the team we would do a week or 2 weeks. So I had all that experience, so I know how a surf coaching trip was like designed and how it worked. But then over the years I realized, yeah, the physical part, we cannot neglect it. If we look also at the pro surfers, and it's actually in every sport, but in surfing we see it's getting slowly more and more adopted. And I have the feeling that right now on the world stage you can't get there without it. Um, so yeah, yeah, that's how that went.
Mm. Yeah, it's an interesting one because it's like it's with any sport, but I feel like it's been a bit more delayed to get there. Like, say if you look at, say, football, for example, where you look back to the 80s and 90s, there wasn't really anything other than playing football that would happen, and then now you look at how players are performing, like they're probably spending 4 or 5 days in the gym alone, just working specifically on things which will help tailor their game. And I guess it's the same for surfing, where you need to be able to produce the power for the pop up, and you need to have that sort of muscular endurance in the legs to be able to pump with the waves, but you're not going to get that without the training. So for you, when you started sort of that realization, like you can't neglect the training aspect, what were you doing in the initial stages to then help sort of enhance your performance on a surfboard, and then how has that adapted over the years as well?
Yeah, like I said earlier in the beginning, when I was a grom myself, there wasn't that much of a how we say that, there was not much of a push from the coaches and the managers towards the Groms to like do physical training. There wasn't that knowledge, at least not here in Belgium. I know in Australia they are already for years they are doing that. But here it wasn't the case. It was like just surf every time when you can surf as much as you can, advising the parents to bring your kids as much as possible to surf trips, and just like that. So back in the days, I think I got lucky that I was a very sportive kid. I did a lot of different sports. I did some gymnastics. I did swimming. That was one thing, and I can advise any kid or any parent who's listening right now, just bring your kids to the swimming pool. That was one thing that my parents told, that you can serve as much as you want, but you have to be a good swimmer. And luckily, it's really important. So I did a lot of swimming. Then I did water polo. Um, Water polo, you know what that is?
Yeah, it's the sport where you with the ball. It's basically like handball, but swimming the entire
Yeah,
time. Yeah.
yeah. Nice, nice. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I was saying that right. So I did water polo, which is really, really good because you're swimming with the head above water. A lot on the arms. You're not losing the legs that much. So yeah, and that was actually the things that I was doing. I was doing some running back then. I got really early into body weight training, just because I was interested in that. So the like the click where I realized that the training is so important for surfing, or at least it can, for the people who want, it can really benefit your surfing. That click actually came later, where I really started studying sports science. So yeah.
Hmm. So, what was it that made you pick sports science as a degree? Was it because of your interest in sport in general, or was it because you wanted to sort of see how you could adapt certain things you would learn into your surf training and things like that?
Yeah, I got lucky that in high school I was in a sports school in Bruges. It's a city near where I live, And in that school, I specifically went to that school because you have a sport status that you can get, and then every time when I had to go on a surf trip, they would I just need to have a paper, and they say you can leave school, you can go on your surf trip or your competition or whatever. So I went to that school, and I was in class with like professional football players, the highest level of tennis players, swimmers. So I was in a group of like athletes, yeah. uh, and I had luck that I had some good teachers there who were also yeah, they were sport teachers, but like also pushing their own limits. Like I know there was one teacher, she was doing marathons, and then I remember really specifically that I decided to become a sport teacher because within that school, in I think it was in my fifth or sixth year, we got the chance to do like micro teaching. It was part of the educational program. And micro teaching is that the sport teacher would just tell the students to teach each other something. And it was actually in ball sports. I'm not so much into ball sports other than water polo. And yeah, they asked us to teach each other, I don't know, to dribble a football, you know. And then I actually, I did it, and I realized that I really enjoyed teaching. And then the teacher also told me like, yeah, you're doing a good job. You could be a good teacher. And I like really enjoyed it. And that's also around the age, I probably was like 15 or 16, where I did a student job as a surf coach in a surf club and on surf camps. And I realized, man, I really like teaching people. I really enjoy that. And then I had one teacher in that same school who was a football or soccer teacher. And he told us about his second job, that after school hours, he was a personal trainer. I clearly remember that moment. And I was a personal trainer. What is that? I never heard of that. And then he explained what a personal trainer was, and I was like, man, so that's teaching, and teaching everything about physical training. And like I told you before, back then I was already into like body weight training and some doing push-ups and calisthenics, like really basic stuff. And that's actually the moment when I realized, like, okay, I want to become a teacher. So when I have to go to university, I will apply for the program, and I will do that. Yeah.
Yeah, because personal training, I feel like now, so sport, because I did sports science as a degree as well. So I feel like in years previous, everyone who did sports science, it was because they wanted to be a teacher. But now it seems to be the route is like to be a personal trainer. So when you graduated and obviously you then got into personal training, were you just working in a regular gym with like general population, or were you trying to get straight into that, like pushing into the surfing with it?
Yeah. So when I was at doing my bachelor degree, obviously I had to do an internship. And when I was doing my internship, I applied for a couple of personal training studios. So it's not like a standard like gym or yeah, it's like really like a studio, private studio. And the one that I like really wanted to go, said that I could go for a talk. And then eventually I went there, and they gave me a job to do my internship. And then after, when I finished my bachelor degree, I wanted to do physiotherapy. I was like, okay, let's continue these studies, because I was quite good with it, and I was like, let's do physiotherapy. But then when I finished my bachelor degree, I got mail from the studio where I did my internship, and they said, yeah, Keith, we want to give you a job. And I was like, yeah, man, I can't. I was like a little bit doubting, like, oh, should I not continue my studies? but I was like so stoked about that place because there's like a lot of like really good trainers there. It's like a team of all personal trainers from different, like some guys like working at the highest level with football players. Another guy is like Olympic. He went to the Olympics for Belgium for gymnastics. Another trainer is like internationally known for flexibility training. So like all these different people, and I could work in that team. So that's also why I applied for the internship. And then because I could work in that team, I was like, yeah, let's do it. And that's how I started working as a personal trainer in a private personal training studio. And my role was in the beginning pretty broad. Like I would have people, yeah, just everything, like people who want to lose weight, people who want to become a little bit more flexible, strength and conditioning, just everything. And then now it narrows more and more and more into what I do, and that's the surfing and flexibility training. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's really important as well when you're starting out, because I was also a personal trainer, and the gym I worked in, we had guys who were working for England national team for football. We had guys who'd worked like within professional rugby, people who were working with the GB snow sport and stuff like that. So working in all these different scopes, but we also had people who would even like they would just work generally with people who wanted to lose weight, or wanted to just be more athletic later in life, sort of thing. And I think it's really important to sort of surround yourself with a broad scope of different philosophies so that you can it basically helps you to tailor your own and see what you want to do, because obviously when you're looking at what they do and how they do it, you could be like, maybe that's not for me, but I'll take this from it, and this guy does this, so maybe that is a bit more my style, so I'll take that and stuff like that. And then so based on that, what was your training philosophy, coaching philosophy in that sort of first year, and how did you adapt that to then your surf coaching as well?
Yeah, when I started working as a personal trainer, I was just like, and actually I still am today, is I want to learn as much as possible, like you mentioned, from all these different visions and different people, different trainers coming from different fields, um, and that's actually how I created over the years more. Like everyone, you have a little bit more interest in specific visions. And for me, that was the flexibility training, because I never heard of that before. Also in my education that I got in university, I never had anything about flexibility. And there were some coaches where I started working that were really like into that on a really high level. And also hand balancing and the more advanced calisthenics kind of training. Um, and yeah, I think my focus. I think when I started, I was just like this guy who just wanted to learn as much as possible, and then my focus more narrowed towards the things that I felt like intrigued by. And I think just by starting practicing those topics myself and studying it, that I started to see the value it had in surfing, because we all know, everyone knows that swimming can be beneficial for surfers. We all know that just following a strength and conditioning program can be beneficial for surfers. But I never saw anyone talk about like odd position strength, something I talk a lot about on my channel, and range strength. I never see anyone talk about that. But those are the positions in which we all injure ourselves. All the knee injuries that we see nowadays, it's all because it's odd positions, and it's like going through the end ranges, but no one ever experienced it with their standard swimming or strength and conditioning program. And of course, then people injure themselves because it's something they haven't experienced or trained before. So I think it's just by seeing the value in that I now created my, let's say, vision, um, and yeah, and focus on the things that I do now as a coach.
Yeah, because one that I think is really important that you do put an emphasis on is knee valgus, because I saw a reel that you put up of, I can't remember the surfer's name, but it was a video of him he caught a wave and he blew out his knee, and it was because it was in knee valgus, like obviously where your knee caves in. And then you then went into it like sort of a tutorial of like a specific, like there was a couple of videos I saw, one where you were doing jumps where your back leg was in that knee valgus position, squats into that position, isometric holds and things like that. So for you, did you almost feel like you were the odd one out who was looking at this when you started doing it, or do you feel like there was maybe a few people who were doing it that you sort of got the idea from?
First, originally, I saw this type of training from some colleagues of mine who were doing really weird, because in the place where I used to work, we also train ourselves. I think for any personal trainer who's listening now, or anyone that's interested in becoming a trainer, you have to practice yourself. You don't have to be the best practitioner, or I mean the best athlete yourself. You cannot always be better than your clients. As a surf coach, you also will have surfers who you coach who will be better surfers than you. That's all okay, but you have to practice and train yourself. So in the place that I worked, in the noon or in the break time, we used to train ourselves. And I saw there was one colleague I saw doing some like really weird stuff, which in my education was always being told that those positions were bad. They were like, no, that's bad, you will injure yourself, you have to avoid those positions, like flexing your back. Everyone would tell you will blow out a disc. And then all of a sudden I saw that one guy doing Jefferson curls with 40 kgs, or squatting, doing sissy squats with his knees caved in. I'm like, what the hell? So I started asking questions. And then I learned that tissue can adapt, and that it's not only like perfect joint centration that is correct movement, but that you can also move outside of that, that you can condition your body to be strong in these odd positions, and that tissues can adapt. So out of that, I started realizing that surfing, if we just pause a surf clip, we see this body going in the exact positions which is taught in regular education to be bad. But we are surfing for 3, 4, 5 hours a day, constantly going through these motions on an unstable object on a surfboard with a wave, with all crazy forces going through our body, super unpredictable. So yeah, if the literature would be correct, then nobody would be surfing, because everyone would blow their knees out all the time and break their backs. So then I started studying that, and started experimenting myself with knee valgus, with what I would call like the surf squats, and then starting to load it up, feeling like, okay, actually, if my hips rotate good and my ankles are good, then eventually I can do squats with a barbell in my neck with a knee valgus position, and my knees would feel perfectly fine. And just go just progressively overload, test and trial and error. And then yeah, I also, because you also asked me if I felt like I was like the weird guy. In the beginning, it was just an experiment, and then I soon realized that some coaches actually are already implementing these things. I see the coach, which I don't know personally, but the coach of Kai Lenny is actually letting Kai Lenny do surf squats with quite some load, and doing jumps, box jumps, with rotations, landing into the surf stands. So I saw him on that's actually on social media, right? I saw him doing that, and then I think a few other coaches as well. So yeah, then I soon realized that, yeah, okay, this is if these guys are doing that, maybe we should go a little bit further and see how it goes. Yeah, and then soon realized that it works.
Yeah, because that my first introduction to sort of away from your typical linear training where like it's your squats, your deadlifts, your everything's like predictable was a guy called Lucas Aarons who he's Range of Strength on Instagram.
Yeah, he's actually
And
was my mentor for a few years.
oh, no way. Yeah, so I bought his program, and it's a very humbling experience to train spinal flexion, spinal extension in the ways that he does. And obviously trying to learn how to get into side splits and front splits and train like simple things like, like a lunge where your feet are very far apart. Your hip flexor is kind of like screaming at you to stop, but you're holding these positions. And for me, I was like, it's really interesting that this, because now obviously he's got a huge following, and I'm talking like 3-4 years ago, and he didn't have a massive following at the time. And I was like, it's baffling that people like this don't have more exposure to them, because it's such an incredible way to train where it bulletproofs your body for not only like whatever sport you may be doing, but for life in general. Like if you've got to go lift a heavy load randomly, it's setting you up for if you have to, like if there's spinal flexion involved, a lot of the time people will do the backing because they're not used to the spinal flexion. And now, like yesterday, I was like felt a bit run down, so I was like, you know what, I'll try a new movement where it's less load, and it was Zercher deadlifts. So you're starting out in a sort of your hamstrings in a very elongated position, and obviously you're picking the bar up in sort of the crease of the elbow, and obviously the spinal flexion involved with that. It's a very humbling experience, and it's like, and a lot of people like. I feel like sometimes because I go to a commercial gym, I'm like the weird guy who's training. But like worldwide, there's so many people who are now doing it, and it's so great to see. But so for you as well, like you put a big emphasis on, because obviously during the pop-up of a surf, there's the spinal extension that you get into. And I've seen you do a lot of like back bridges and stuff like that. So when you obviously over the years you've developed these things to now like they're a part of your training, they're a part of what you teach to people. Did you find as a coach you were kind of analyzing surf videos and how you were surfing and be like, so I've got to do this movement, how do I adapt this into my training outside of surfing, if that makes sense?
Yeah, that's actually how it went. I started looking at at surfing, and then see, like I mentioned earlier, realized that it's very odd and very outside of what is taught in traditional fitness education. And then indeed, I looked at those positions, starting to see patterns with, for instance, the surf squat that I teach, and then try to make and build exercises around that, because obviously there is no educational platform yet for surf coaches to implement physical training. And I start to build with the knowledge I have from my education around those positions. Also, one position that we often see in more advanced surfing is a lateral lunge, or like a Cossack squat. I like to call them the level up squats, because actually the toes keep pointing forward, so the feet stay flat on the ground, and the back leg with which you would stand on the tail pad for more advanced surfers, that leg would fully extend, whilst the front leg would bend and carry all the body weight. Like in Cossack squats, we rotate the back leg. We do an external rotation to go more into the hamstrings, to go deeper. But in surfing, obviously, you can't do that. But let's say just in this these lateral lunging patterns, I started to see as well in more advanced surfing. So then I started developing for myself, and then eventually also my students, more strength in those positions. Um, and then also seeing results with students, riders who train with me, seeing that they're doing maneuvers that they always been doing, but now all of a sudden the position is much more advanced and much more beautiful to look at, because of those exercises. Also in my own practice, I just saw when I did those exercises, it became like I became really strong and flexible in my adductors. And then I saw pictures and videos of myself surfing that I had clips and pictures of myself that I never had before. And the only thing I changed was my approach to training. Um,
Yeah, it's I think the hip abductors are one of the most neglected muscles in the body, along with maybe the tibia anterior and probably your hip flexors. But like especially I think in most sports really where you're in an unpredictable environment, you see a lot of times like people will pull their adductor and you look at the position they were in, they're near enough in like a split position in what like sometimes, and even on a surfboard where it may not even be a case of on the board. Sometimes, if you catch a wave and you sort of about to fall off, you can notice, like I've noticed a few times where my hips have been in like a pretty wide position when I've fallen off the board. And probably if I didn't, because I do side split training a fair bit now. And if I hadn't done that, I probably would have pulled my adductor at that point. And it's something that people don't realize you need to be doing, but should be doing.
yeah, exactly. And that's what the whole what my whole vision is with or philosophy is with Level Up, is that it's train on land, perform on water. The I like to watch the surfer and the individual as a frame, and you have a frame, and that frame can handle X amount of impacts. The more developed the frame, the more it can do. And then if we look at surfing, it has a particular impact on the frame. And the whole thing is that the more you train and the more, like with the things we just talked about, the more you advance that frame to handle those things like the adductors, then the knee valgus, obviously the shoulders, the extension for the paddling, the more sophisticated that frame becomes, thanks to classical physical training with a surf specific approach, the more it can handle while surfing. And just like you just mentioned, people who have better and stronger adductors will not injure themselves with a particular wipeout. Whilst if you would not have done that training, maybe we never know, but maybe you would have injured yourself. A perfect example is Italo Ferreira, who did the craziest I made a video of that on my channel. The craziest, like I think it was a floater. He wiped out. He landed the floater, but his front leg slipped off over the nose, and he just went in the nastiest position for his knee possible. And everyone online, obviously he had an injury, a knee injury, and everyone was like, "Oh no, he will be out for at least 6 months," this and that. And after just a few weeks, he was already doing squats again, barbell back squats, and he was already surfing after just a few months. Um, that I want to put my hand in the fire for. That is just all thanks to his training that he done previously. He recovered way faster. His injury was way less big, um, thanks to his training. Obviously, I don't know his coach. I don't know what all the training is that he does, but I see a lot of it passing by on socials, and there's a lot of good stuff in there, and we can all see that he puts in the work. And that's what it's all about. That's what I do with Level Up. I promote physical training for surfers. I teach it to my riders. And if you want to get the most out of your surf sessions and you're keen to do some training, then I can only advise you to do it.
Yeah. So with Level Up, when you first started it, obviously you were transitioning from in studio work to the online coaching. How did you initially get the buy-in from clients to sort of transition to work with you, specifically surfers as well? Like, was it through the use of social media, or was it at first through clients who you had previously?
It was all thanks to social media. So I started in Instagram. I had my personal Instagram account, Keith Marcantuoni, which is not active anymore. And I just started posting stuff on there. People already followed me because of my surfing, and then obviously just some friends and family. But I started just posting my own practice on there, my surfing, if I had clips or pictures, and then obviously also my physical training, my practice. I got into handstands. I got also into like front splits, middle splits, and then more and more I started training more surf specific. Then I started Level Up, made an Instagram page, Level Up Surf Coaching, and then actually completely through social media, I just announced that I would take on some online clients, and then build it up from there. But it's definitely the buy-in. Just like to start with this for surfers, it's all pretty new, and surfing is an extreme sport, and there's a big part of the surfing community that's like thinking, I don't know what it is, but like they are like, if you're training for surfing, it's not cool. So, and that there will always be that part, you know. I think it's actually in every sport. I have the feeling that in surfing there's a lot of resistance from like the core cool surfer guys that that are like putting a, like, even I get some comments like cookie, like stop it, or stuff like that. So that's a perfect example of like how people don't really like get it, and there's a lot of that
Mm.
people now, which is so cool, through the exposure that the professional athletes are giving, or the content that the professional athletes are putting out there, like that they are also training. And then what I am doing, and a lot of different coaches around the world are now doing, is like putting out the knowledge that we have and the benefits it can have on surfers. Thanks to that, more and more people are coming in and are like, yeah, okay, let's try physical training. And that's why, yeah, that's the power of social media. So yeah, I actually, all through social media, I build it up, mind coaching.
So when you were trying to build up your social media to a point where you could take on the clients, and obviously you had the people there ready to go, what were you doing in terms of, so like, how's your content adapted to build that following that you have?
Specificity, like just focus purely on a niche, yeah, they would call it a niche. So focus purely on surfing, so that people come on my page, they would immediately resonate with their own personality, like, oh, I'm a surfer, oh, he is a surfer, he's putting out content for surfers, maybe I should follow, or look into what he is doing. So yeah, just putting out the content for surfers, and sharing valuable information. And also, what I really like about social media is connecting with other coaches and other individuals who are practicing and doing the same things that I'm doing. So that's what I also really like, is opening up discussions, putting something out there, like for instance the surf squats. I got a lot of like comments and different perspective of people who don't get it, or are like, no, don't do that, that's so dangerous, you will completely destroy your ACL, or MCL. Um, and that's really interesting to, like you mentioned before, to get the visions and the information from different, like we had in both of us had in our personal training studio experience. Now you can also have that through social media. The only thing is, with social media, it's free, so there's a lot of noise out there. But as an experienced coach, it's cool to like pick different individuals and then start chatting and read the comments and like share and learn from each other. Yeah.
So, oh, like, obviously now you're at a point where you have the client base and stuff like that, and sometimes I feel like when you've obviously got that, sometimes it can be easier to just continue what you're doing and not continue to progress yourself as a coach. So, what are you still doing now to continue to progress yourself and to continue to learn throughout the process?
You mean as education and practice,
Yeah,
or?
yeah, education. Well, but let's say both education and your own physical practice, which you can then take onto your clients as well.
Yeah, I'm just continuing to be how you say that, to be curious. I the will to learn, from the beginning until now, so many years later, is still the same. I'm like super curious, and I always like to have discussions, healthy discussions with other coaches and people. So that is something that drives me to keep on learning. I right now I have some courses going on that I'm diving into. I have some books that I'm reading. So I'm still actually doing some education. And for my own practice, it's just curiosity. I still also do my middle split work. I still do my body weight strength work, and then just being curious, like how far can we push this particular exercise. Like I'm doing a lot of like pistol squats, which I find very beneficial to knees, unilateral strength, leg strength. And then I'm looking like, okay, now I can do like 3 or 4 sets of 10 reps on each leg. Maybe we should go over to dragon squats. Okay, what might be the benefit here? There's obviously a lot of mobility going on there. Yeah, so I just keep on training, and I actually think that I will continue training and being curious to educate myself for the rest of my life. Same with surfing. This is so beautiful about surfing, is that it never stops. If you want, you can keep on improving your surfing for the rest of your life. Like when I was in West Australia, I saw a lot of old, let's 60-year-old males and females. So I would categorize that as an old person. Uh, they were just shredding. Like these guys and ladies were so good at surfing. So yeah, you can just keep improving your surfing if you want, and it's up to the individual. If you just like to be a Sunday cruiser, and just catch a few waves and enjoy, have a chat with your friends, or enjoy the nature, then that's perfectly fine. But if you want to keep improving your surfing, same as with training. If you have your typical bodybuilding routine, which you have been doing for the last 25 years, and you're good with that, then that's fine. But for me, that's soon turns into just a boring routine. So I want to continue trying new stuff, learn from it, do a cycle of like three months, or even just 8 weeks, then hop on to the next. Same with education, same with my surfing, and same with my practice.
Yeah. I'm interested to hear about your personal training experience. So, like, do you train for maximal strength at all? Like, does that ever come into your training? And then also to complement the surfing, like, so say, how often do you surf a week? And then also, how often are you training a week to complement that?
Yeah. So when I am in Belgium, which is now the case, I'm training much more than last year. Last year I was fortunate enough to live in Indonesia for 9 months, and to travel in Asia, and then a little bit in Australia. And yeah, when I was in Indo, I surfed so much. I did sometimes, if I had a free day, I surfed for like 8 hours a day. Then obviously you're not doing maximal strength training, or you're not going to do a conditioning workout after that. Um, in those days, I would focus on those periods. I would focus on my recovery. So I have my recovery strategies. I have the big three: my sleep, my nutrition, and my hydration. And then I would make sure those are on point. Then I have my other strategies that I can implement. We have the SMR, self myofascial release. We have the stretching. We have the breathing, the meditation, mobilizers, all that stuff. And I would do those things to make sure that the next day I'm ready again to go and surf. So people always talk about workouts, but it's also the work in which is so important for athletes. You have to do workout is doing exercises that extracts energy from the body, and the work in is doing exercises and protocols like breathing and stuff like that to bring energy back into the body, to restore the body, and to help the recovery process. So in periods that I surf a lot, I would do those things. And then in periods like right now, I'm in Belgium, so like I said before, not many waves going on here. I'm doing more training. Right now, I'm doing for the next 3 months. I'm doing more of a strength building, building back my strength. Because I feel that I lost some strength from all the surfing I did. So I'm doing some more strength work, and then I'll see after that what will be the case.
Yeah. So obviously you're back in Belgium now because you had an unfortunate, well, injury slash bacterial infection, which is, required you to come back. So talk me through that whole process of like when it obviously occurred, coming back, and then how you're now sort of planning the next few months in order to get yourself back to your best performance.
Yeah, so what happened is I actually planned to come back. It's the holidays now, and also the travels that I did past year were planned to be 9 months, and to come back to Belgium and then see after what happens. Also now in February already, I have 2 coaching trips planned for France. Then so I have to be in Europe. Then in April again, I have 2 coaching trips. After that, nothing's planned yet. But yeah, so it was planned to come back to Europe. And what happened is during the last 2 weeks of my surfing in Bali, I was in Bali. There was a lot of jellyfish in the water, like small particles that you sometimes can't even see. Sometimes you see a lot of jellyfish, but sometimes you can't even see them. And yeah, just what happens so much in tropical waters is you get sting all over your body. It's like small electrical shocks. And everyone's then with their hands up in the water and splashing the water because they don't want to get a sting. And that happened to me together with so many other surfers, and that happened to me already so many times. But what happens sometimes is that after you get small blisters, the sting you get, it turns into a small blister. And I'm talking the size of just a pen point, just super small. And I had one on my right knee. And I continue surfing. The small blister popped, and it leaves a very small wound. But literally, I'm talking about the size of a pencil. And I was surfing for a full day, and on the last session, I feel my knee is starting to get like fatigued. It was like a feeling like it won't bend that easy anymore, and I was like, what's happening? But I also had just a new surfboard, which was a little bit wider and had more volume than the one I had before. So I thought, yeah, maybe it's because I'm just working it too much. I'm putting out more force on my back leg than normal. So I went out the water, like I already did a few times that day, to drink some water and to eat something. I sit down on the beach and I try to stand up, and I feel my knee is just super painful. And I was like, what the hell is happening here? So I really started I don't know, I can't say the word now,
Limping.
limping. Yeah, limping. So I started limping, and I immediately thought, okay, I ruptured something in my knee. I had the So I went back home. Obviously, I didn't go out anymore. I went home. I called my physiotherapist in Belgium. I shoot her a message, and she gave me a few assessments. I did them, and they were all negative. So she said, "Yeah, there's nothing wrong with your knee, or yeah, it still can be, but normally, if you would have anything on your knee, it would be that it would turn out positive." So you have to go to the hospital because the swelling can also be due to an infection. And I was like, what, an infection? How could that be? So I went to the hospital in Bali. They took my blood, and they saw that indeed I had an infection. And then they wanted to keep me there. So they say, yeah, we want to keep you here at least for a day to put you on the IV with antibiotics to see how it goes. But the next day I already had my flight planned. So then I decided to not stay there. I had an insurance upgrade to business class, which I'm so lucky and so happy for. So I could extend my leg. And luckily, because during the flight, we had 2 flights, one of 6 hours and one of 12 hours. During the flight, the leg started to hurt more. Definitely during the landing, with the pressure coming off, it hurted more and more. And after the last flights, when we arrived in Amsterdam, we flew to Amsterdam and then drove back home to Belgium. My knee, something popped in my knee, and there started pus coming out. And we immediately went actually to the emergency care, and there they kept me for 3 nights. For 3 nights I had to stay there. My inflammation was way too high, and what was the explanation is that due to the very small blister that I had on my knee, but I also had them on other places, on my arms, and on actually also on the other knee, on my legs. Due to the small blister on my right knee, a bacteria came in, and it started to working its way down into my knee, and that caused an inflammation, and the whole knee was full of pus. So they had to push it out and then make a small incision and take it all out. And now, finally, after a week, I can walk again without crutches. I still have some limitations, like I'm trying to do deep squats now, and like fully flexing my knee is still not possible. It like kind of hurts, and I think in 2 days I have to go on a consultation again with the orthopedist. Yeah, I know how to
Yeah.
say that. The
Yeah,
specialist,
orthopedic surgeon.
orthopedic surgeon. Yeah, and they said that in 2 or 3 weeks, exercising and surfing would be possible again. So it's not that bad, and there is, luckily, they saw on all the scans, there is no structural damage to my knee, so all the ligaments are intact. So the first feeling that the first thought that I had, that my knee was injured due to a ligament tear or something, is negative. So there's nothing wrong with my knee except then the inflammation that I had, and that now is needing to take care of. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Having a knee injury, because so I had knee surgery about 4 months ago, and I flew back a couple. I think it was about a couple of weeks after the surgery from Australia to the UK. So it was a 14-hour and a 9-hour flight, or 7 hour, and it was like, again, the landing, obviously, because obviously the amount of swelling, it's just so painful and hard to describe. But then even the days after, when you're trying to like put weight on it, and it feels like you can't activate your quad because obviously the neuromuscular inhibition through the swelling, like there would be times where I, even now to this day, sometimes, so I'll be walking and there'll be an uneven surface, and like when you don't process it in your brain that's there, my quad just won't activate, and it's sort of, the leg kind of gives way, and it's a tough one to deal with for a bit, especially when you've been at like full fitness, full form, and you're able to do anything you want, and then now it's at a point where you're like watching where you're walking and how you do things. It's a humbling experience.
Yeah, it's so when I had the moment where I had to like limp, and at a certain point could not walk unassisted, that feeling was like, damn, I never want to experience that ever. So having then the explanation from the specialist that it is not a structural thing but only like an infection, like a little bit out of my power at that time, I got even more convinced how important it is for myself to make sure I don't get injured in the future. It can always happen. There's a lot of things to injuries, but if I have the opportunity to lower the chance through physical training for surfing, then I will, and I will definitely do it, because that feeling, I can completely understand what you mean of like being a fit young adult, and then all of a sudden can't walk anymore unassisted. That feeling is so it's not nice.
Yeah. So I want to get into a few different things as well, what people can take away from this, because obviously with your experience as a surfer and as a sort of a coach as well. So the first one I want to ask is, what are the 3 tips you would give to someone who's a beginner who wants to get into surfing?
um Educate yourself. That could be through courses that you can take in person. Go to a surf club, sign up for a teaching surf coaching teaching program. That could be online, working together with a coach, or that could just be asking a friend or someone you know with experience in surfing, someone that is at a level that you eventually want to be. Ask questions. So that's a really big one. Then obviously physical preparation. I mean, surfing is so taxing on the body, and there's a lot of people that actually during when I was teaching beginners on the surf camps, there's a lot of people that just a 1 hour surf session as a beginner, they just couldn't complete the entire session. Why is that? Obviously, there is techniques and the techniques of handling the waves and predictability, all those things, but it's also the physical. So a lot of people are physically not prepared for surfing, and if you would prepare yourself physically on surfing, your frame, like I talked about earlier, your frame can handle more of the impact surfing will have on your frame, and it will all go that much easier. So just educate yourself, prepare yourself physically, and then also I think material. So like investing in the right materials, like and making the right decisions. Like a lot of beginners, like so many coaches already talked about on other podcasts and on their platforms, is taking the wrong surfboard to start with. Um, Also, investing in a good wetsuit. If you want to surf, if you want to become a better surfer, we have physical training, we have the education, we have all that, but eventually you also have to surf. The more time you spend in the water, also the better you can become as a surfer. So if investing in a winter wetsuit, for instance, somebody that lives in Belgium that's now listening to the podcast, if you want to surf more, invest in a good, if you have the budget, invest in a good new or even second-hand wetsuit so that you can surf more during the winter times when it's colder. Make sure you have the right surfboard. So I think, yeah, material is a big one. Investing in the right material, investing in the right education, and investing some time in physical training so that you're prepared for surfing.
Yeah. And then, so if you could only do 3 exercises for the rest of your life, which could benefit your surfing, what would they be?
Pull-ups, 100% pull-up. Then some form of a lateral squat / middle split, something that stretches and loads up the adductors. And are we talking land-based exercises?
Land-based exercises, yeah.
And then definitely some sort of like a surf squat or a squat or lunge that has some rotation involved at the hips and knees.
Yeah. And then, as say for a coach who's wanting to start building their client base through social media, what 3 tips would you give to them to be able to do that?
Have a niche. So make sure that whatever sport or thing you are in, make sure there is a niche. Bring out value without accepting anything in return. So bring out like real true value. I put a lot of time in captions and writing because I like that, and thinking about like what could be valuable for others. So bring out value, have a niche, and being consistent.
Yeah. So, and then one final question that I have, which I ask all my guests, is how would you like to be remembered?
Oh, I
It's
think
a tough one. It's always a tough one.
I, I think, or at least I hope, I still have a very long time ahead. But when the day comes, how would I like to be remembered? Just yeah, as a stoked Belgian surfer that one wants to do anything to be able to surf as much as possible.
Amazing. Appreciate you coming on, and just let everyone know where they can find you, like where they can find your coaching and stuff like that.
Yeah, so the website is levelupsurfcoaching.com. And through social media, it is on Instagram, Level Up Surf Coaching.
All right, amazing. Thank you for coming on, mate. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ethan.
Hope you enjoyed that episode with Keith. He's a really great guy, really knowledgeable person, and really enjoyed that episode with him talking all things coaching and coaching philosophies and surfing as well. So if you enjoyed that episode, make sure to give the podcast a like, subscribe, or share it, or leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And also you can find all of Keith's links down in the description below. So I will see you next Monday for another episode.